Hello, my name is Paul and today our topic is going to be what colour was Yahushua and where did he come from? Here's a picture of Shem, Ham and Japheth. The children of Shem went to Asia, the children of Ham went to Africa, and the children of Japheth went to Europe where it's cold. Again, in this picture we see the children of Japheth went to Europe where the white people come from. Asia is where the children of Shem went, and they were yellow and brown, and then obviously the dark skinned people went to Africa. That's the children of Ham. So we see where the children of each tribe went to. Now we're going to look through the Bible and find out what the Jews look like. What did the Jews look like? Did they look European? Did they look like Chinese? We don't know. We're going to go through the Bible and find out what the Bible has to say what the Hebrew Israelites look like in the Bible. Here in the Bible, these verses here, we see that the Hebrew Israelites look like Egyptians. When Yahushua and Joseph fled to Egypt from King Herod, they fled to Egypt, even though Yahushua and Joseph were from Nazareth, which is in the north. We see that Moses looked like an Egyptian. He was raised by an Egyptian called Pharaoh. Paul looked like an Egyptian. And also Joseph, when he had his 11 brothers, and 10 brothers he called spies when they came to Egypt when he became Pharaoh. And then he sent his 10 brothers back to his father Jacob to get Benjamin. But Joseph's brothers fought, but Joseph was an Egyptian. So in the Bible, the Hebrew Israelites looked like Egyptians. They did not look like Europeans. Although for 3,500 years of intermarriage, some Hebrew Israelites happen to be white and brown and also in every tribe and nation. But as we see in the Bible, clearly 2,000, 3,000 years ago, according to the Word of God, the Hebrew Israelites in the Bible look like Egyptians. As you see that red dot with the arrows coming out of it, the closer the people in Africa come to that black dot, the lighter they are. So the lighter tribe nations will be in Northern Africa. As you go Southern Africa, they become more darker. Same with Asia. You look at Japan's really white and China's yellow, but as you come closer to that red dot, where you got India, then the Arabs are even darker. And the same with Europe. The more northern children of Japheth who went to Europe are more whiter. As you get closer and closer to that red dot, they become darker and darker and darker. This also shows that the Egyptians probably were one of the lighter tribes of Ham. They probably weren't as dark as some of the other tribes. And this also makes sense because they look like the Hebrew Israelites. As you see that picture, we see that the lighter tribes of Ham probably were in the north, closer to Egypt, and that probably means Egyptians look like Hebrew Israelites. And the Israelites who lived in Israel probably were one of the darkest tribes of Shem. So we've got the darkest tribe of Shem and the lightest tribes of Ham coming together, and that's why the Hebrew Israelites and the Egyptians look very similar in the Bible. As we see here in Revelation 1, we see a description of the Son of Man. And we look in verse 15, we see his feet were like unfined brass, as if they burned in a furnace. So this description of Christ means he had skin which is like fine brass that's burned in a furnace. In Daniel chapter 10 verse 6 we see that Christ had arms and feet, which is his skin, to the colour of polished brass, which means now we know what kind of skin Christ had. He had skin that looks the same as polished brass, or brass that's in a furnace. When Revelation said that Christ had skin that was brass in a furnace, we know when the brass goes in a furnace it goes yellow. Brass is made up of copper and zinc, and you put the borax in with a mixture to stop the zinc from evaporating. So when Christ had skin like brass in a furnace, what it means is that this is new brass. This is not old brass which has got distorted colour. This is true brass in the furnace. And then when Daniel says he had polished brass, that also means that he had polished brass which is new brass. It's not old brass. It means recently polished. So it's not brown. It's a gold colour. And I'm going to show you now, according to what the Word of God says, what Christ's skin colour would have looked like. As we see in this brass picture here, this is what brass in direct sunlight looks like. Because you have to remember in the Bible, there was no lights back then. When Daniel and John saw Christ's skin like brass, it was in direct sunlight. And we see this brass top in direct sunlight, it's got all shades of brown to gold. So what Christ would have looked like, Christ would have had a golden brown complexion. He wasn't white and he wasn't really dark either, according to the Word of God. We know Christ had white hair, but if you put that aside, both these two people here have got hair like wool. See the curly hair on both these people? But the one on the left here, the Negro on the left, this man here has got golden brown complexion, the same as what brass looks like, whereas the dark-skinned person on the right here has a darker complexion. So Christ would have been closer to the golden complexion on the Negro on the left. And obviously Christ was not a white man either. So according to the Word of God, Christ had skin like brass, which is on the right here, that yellowish tingy look. He did not have skin like copper or bronze. According to the King James, he had skin like brass. Some of the other versions say bronze, and if you want to say he's bronze, then obviously the King James isn't for you. But the King James Bible says Christ had skin like brass. We now know that Christ had skin like brass in direct sunlight, which is a golden brown complexion. He was not dark skinned or even bronze, like some black Hebrew Israelites teach. They're wrong because the Bible doesn't say he's bronze. It says Christ had a complexion that was of brass, which is golden brown. So the King James Bible also supports this. The King James Bible says that Christ had skin like brass. Some of these black Hebrew Israelites don't like the King James Bible when they say, no, Christ had skin like bronze. They go to other translations. But the Bible clearly says Christ had skin like brass. He did not have a skin like bronze. And if these black Hebrew Israelites wish to teach that Christ had skin like bronze and not brass, then they need to give up the King James Bible, and they're telling lies, and they need to tell the truth. So no, but Christ was a light brown, golden complexion Hebrew Israelite with Negro hair, which is white woolly hair. That's what the Bible teaches, and we now know the truth according to the Word of God.